today, Bodha?
Today, we step into the heart of an ancient and blessed land, Koshala, cradled by sacred Sarayu. And within Koshala gleamed the jewel of cities, the magnificent Ayodhya, built by the supreme lawgiver, Lord Manu. 12 yojanas long and 3 yojanas broad, Ayodhya was a marvel. Its highways broad, marketplaces vibrant, and archways majestic. The air pulsed with music and echoes of mridangas, veenas, and panavas. Row upon row stood majestic homes crowned with banners and precious stones, guarded by mighty fortifications and deep moats reflecting molten gold.
Wow, it sounds like a heavenly city.
Indeed, Ayodhya was alive with joy and prosperity. Ayodhya was the home of warriors, skilled Maharathas who could defeat enemies without shedding unnecessary blood, archers who would never harm the unarmed, lions, tigers, wild boars, none could stand before their might in the forests. No enemy could breach its defenses. No sorrow could darken its brilliance.
And what about the people, Bodha?
The people of Ayodhya lived with dignity and devotion. Warriors upheld dharma with honor, Brahmins performed sacred rituals, traders flourished honestly. There was no poverty, no falsehood, and no jealousy, only righteousness and joy. No one lacked wealth, knowledge, or virtue. Everyone spoke the truth, performed sacrifices, and worshipped the sacred fire. The city echoed with Vedic chants and fragrance of devotion. There was no atheists, no liars, no one who disrespected elders or Brahmins. No one was jealous. No one was without the knowledge of scriptures.
Such perfection, it feels divine.
Oh yes, Ayodhya was indeed a living embodiment of virtue, where dharma ruled and every citizen thrived under the shadow of righteousness.
Bodha, who ruled such a glorious city?
It was the mighty king Dasharatha, the scion of Ikshvaku dynasty. He ruled like Indra himself, enhancing the kingdom's splendor and valor, wisdom and righteousness. Well versed in Vedas, master of resources, far-sighted and full of prowess, Dasharatha was beloved by townsfolk and villagers alike. A peerless charioteer among kings, a single-handed victor against many Maharathas.
He must have been a hero among heroes.
Indeed, Dasharatha performed countless yagas, upheld dharma with unwavering strength, and commanded perfect control over his subjects and himself. His fame resounded across Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, and Suvarloka. He was mighty, a destroyer of enemies, surrounded by loyal friends, his riches rivaling Indra and Kubera. He ruled with righteousness, never swerving from the path of truth.
Who supported him in such flawless governance, Bodha?
Dasharatha was assisted by 8 ministers, each one flawless in virtue, wisdom, and skill. Drishti, Jayanta, Vijaya, Siddhartha, Arthasadaka, Ashoka, Mantrapala, and Sumantra. Masters of statecraft, skilled in reading faces, unwavering in righteousness, they helped Dasharatha replenish the treasury and strengthened the army without burdening the people. They spoke only truth, kept secrets well, judged fairly, and never deviated for anger, greed, or desire.
And the spiritual guidance?
2 great sages, Vashishta and Vamadeva, stood as royal priests. Along with the other Brahmins like Suyagna, Jabali, and Kashyapa, they ensured that Ayodhya's rule never strayed from the sacred path of dharma. Under such noble ministers and wise priests, Dasharatha's reign mirrored the golden age itself, peaceful, prosperous, and righteous.
Bodha, he's so perfect, but there's no sorrow in his heart.
Even the mightiest kings bear hidden sorrows, Tattva. Dasharatha, majestic, righteous, and magnanimous, was weighed down by one deep ache. He had no son to continue the Ikshvaku lineage. Despite performing numerous austerities, despite all virtues, no blessing of a child had yet graced his life. And then, a divine thought struck him. Why not invoke the gods through the sacred Ashwamedha Yaga?
The Ashwamedha Yaga?
Dasharatha, resolute, ordered Sumantra, "Go swiftly and summon all my spiritual preceptors along with the family priests." As they all assembled, the virtuous king rose and paid homage to the sages. With humility, he spoke his heart. There is no happiness for one who has no child. This sorrow grips my soul with unbearable weight. Therefore, I have resolved to perform an Ashwamedha Yagam. I wish to undertake this noble rite as prescribed by the scriptures. Tell me, O revered ones, how can I fulfill this sacred desire?
What did the sages say, Bodha?
Overjoyed, the sages led by Vasistha Maharshi exclaimed, Well said, O king, your wish is pure and righteous. Let all the sacred articles be gathered, let the horse be released under vigilant protection. You shall surely be blessed with children. With trembling excitement, Dashratha instructs his ministers to make the arrangements in accordance with the scriptures. After setting the preparations in motion, Dashratha shared the sacred news with his dearest queens Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi.
And how did the queens receive this information, Bodha?
Upon hearing his words, the faces of Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi blossomed, radiant like lotuses after the long winter of longing.
Bodha, each queen seems so distinct in her nature. Is there a deeper significance?
Indeed, Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi represent the three gunas of nature. Kaushalya embodies Sattva Guna, purity, humility, and virtue. Sumitra reflects Rajas, passion, activity, and wisdom. Kaikeyi represents Tamas, ambition, inertia, and attachment.
Will these qualities influence what unfolds?
Yes, Tattva, purity, passion, and ambition. Together, they weave the destiny not just of a family, but of the world.
Bodha, did anyone offer him further counsel?
Seeing the king's excitement and hope, Sumantra respectfully sought a private audience. O mighty king, I wish to tell you something important. Something I once heard from the sacred conversations of the officiating priests, a prophecy done about you and your future generations, about a sage whose very presence guarantees fulfillment of all your wishes and boundless bliss.
And Dashratha must have asked who the sage was?
Indeed, with eager anticipation, Dashratha asked, Sumantra, who is this great sage you speak of? Tell me. Seated before the king, Sumantra said, O king, long ago, the great sage Sanat Kumara, foremost among the celestials, spoke of your lineage before an assembly of sages. He foretold, Kashyapa has a celebrated son named Vibhandaka. Vibhandaka had a son named Rishishringa, the sage whose purity could bring in prosperity with his mere steps. The great Rishishringa, celebrated in the three worlds, would practice a twofold brahmacharya, both Vratatva, austere studenthood, and Prajapatya, pre-householder vow, as spoken of by the learned Brahmins.
Bodha, how did such an extraordinary sage come into existence?
Listen carefully, Tattva. The story of Rishishringa's birth is unlike any other. One day, sage Vibhandaka went to bathe in the river. At that very moment, the divine Apsara Urvashi appeared before him, radiant and enchanting. Overwhelmed by a sudden surge of passion, the sage's seminal fluid fell into the waters. That water, charged with the divine essence, was consumed by a female deer. But this was no ordinary deer. She was once a heavenly dancer.
Who was she, Bodha?
She was Chitrarekha, a Nartaki from Indra's court. While dancing, she had become enamored with the beauty of the deer around her, neglecting Indra's presence. Offended, Indra cursed her. Since your heart delights in deer, be born as one. When Chitrarekha pleaded for mercy, Lord Indra declared, Once you give birth to a divine child, your curse will end. Thus was born Rishishringa, his name meaning deer horn sage, with small antler-like horns adorning his head, a mark of his mystical birth. Rishishringa grew up within the woods, immersed in Vedic studies and austere penance. He had never seen another human being apart from his father. No woman, no stranger, no city, no sensual pleasure ever crossed his life. Raised deep within the forest, always moving with his father, Rishishringa, a pure sage, would know none but his father.
Such absolute innocence, Bodha?
Yes, Tattva, a sage untouched by the world's illusions, pure in body, mind, and soul. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Anga, ruled the mighty and celebrated king Romapada.
Wasn't he a strong ally of Dashrath Maharaj?
Indeed, he was an able ruler and very generous. One day, a Brahmin who had just accepted alms from Romapada returned with his young son and humbly requested a cow. Romapada, chuckling, remarked in a mocking tone, "Brahmins are never satisfied. They are always asking for more."
And that might have offended the Brahmin, right?
Deeply, the Brahmin, feeling insulted, said, "We asked because you were donating, but you scorned us. Since you did so, the kingdom that you deem as your children shall suffer drought." And hence, due to the king's violation of Dharma, a dreadful drought swept Anga, frightening all the living beings. Grief-stricken, Romapada turned to his wisest advisors. "O learned ones, tell me, by what expiation, by what righteous means can this curse be lifted?" The sages spoke, "O king, bring Rishyashringa, the son of Vibhandaka, to your kingdom. Honor him and offer your daughter Shanta to him in marriage. Only his presence can end this famine."
Hey, 1 minute. Wasn't Shanta Devi Dashratha's daughter?
A valid question, Tattva, and one that's often asked. The original Valmiki Ramayana describes Shanta Devi as the daughter of King Romapada of Anga. However, Ananda Ramayana, a later text written in 14th-15th centuries, and in many local traditions and folk retellings, a different version was spun. One that claims Shanta was indeed the biological daughter of Dashratha and Queen Kaushalya.
Then why was she raised by Romapada?
Well, there are three key reasons given in these later accounts. First one, Dashratha and Romapada were close friends, and Dashratha had once promised to give his firstborn to Romapada as a token of that bond. Secondly, some say Shanta was born under inauspicious astrological conditions. By giving her an adoption, Dashratha hoped to ward off any ill effects from the stars. And the third one, Queen Kaushalya's sister, Varshini, was married to Romapada. As the royal couple of Anga longed for a child, Kaushalya agreed to entrust Shanta to her sister, thereby strengthening both familial and political ties. Regional retellings and later texts like the Ananda Ramayana often layered variations, enriching the epic with diverse interpretations. It's important to understand that Valmiki Ramayana is the most authentic source.
But how could they bring such a pure soul out of the forest?
Even the bravest ministers hesitated, fearful of Vibhandaka's wrath. Finally, after much deliberation, they suggested a bold plan. The plan was to let beautiful courtesans, skilled in arts and sweet speech, entice the young sage to the kingdom. Romapada, desperate to save his people, agreed. One day, Rishyashringa, roaming near the hermitage, heard melodious sweet singing voices. Following the sweet melody, he came upon these charming sweet-voiced women. They asked him, "O Brahmana, who are you? Why do you wander alone in this dreadful forest?" Rishyashringa, innocent and pure, spoke truthfully. "I am Rishyashringa, son of Vibhandaka. Please come to my hermitage. Allow me to offer you roots and fruits as hospitality." The courtesans obliged and accepted his hospitality. Fearing Vibhandaka's return, they quickly offered him sweets, rich foods, delights he had never tasted before. The sage, accustomed only to wild fruits and roots, mistook the delicacies as forest offerings. When the women departed, he was left restless, his mind longing for their return. The next day, Rishyashringa eagerly approaches the same spot. The courtesans welcomed him joyfully, and this time inviting them to their hermitage, they gently led him away into the kingdom of Anga. The moment Rishyashringa entered Anga, the skies opened, the parched land rejoiced with life once more. Romapada bowed low before the sage, honoring him with utmost reverence. To atone and appease Vibhandaka Maharshi, he offered his daughter Shanta in marriage.
Did Rishyashringa go back to his ashram?
Actually, no. Content honored and with all his wishes fulfilled, Rishyashringa made Anga his home. O great king! Thus narrated Sanat Kumara in Kritayuga that King Dasharatha, lord of all the people and knower of Dharma, desirous of performing the sacrifice, would ask Rishyashringa with folded palms for granting a boon to perform a sacrifice in order to obtain children and to attain heaven. The king will get those desires fulfilled through that chief Brahmin. Now, along with vehicles and retinue, I advise you to personally go to your friend King Romapada and bring the peers Rishishringa Maharshi here to perform Ashwamedha Yaga and Putrakameshri. Dasharatha, face lit with determination, rose from his throne. Having obtained Vashishta's consent, Dasharatha, accompanied by his 3 queens and ministers, departed towards Anga to meet the sage destined to change his fate.
But how will Dasharatha convince the son of Vibhandaka to come along with him?
Will destiny unfold as foretold by the ancient prophecy, and will the Ashwamedha Yaga finally begin?
What was so special about the Ashwamedha Yaga that even the gods waited for it to begin?
And while Ayodhya prepared for divine blessings, who was the dark force rising in the distance? The one whose name would shake the 3 worlds. To find out, do not forget to like, comment and subscribe to our channel Bodha Hoots. Stay with us as the timeless journey of Sampurna Ramayan continues. Jai Shri Ram.